The mysterious signal was a quiet night on Earth, one of those rare moments when the planet seemed to be at peace. But in the silence of space, something incredible was happening. A signal, unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, reached Earth's space station. The signal came in waves, patterns that at first seemed like random noise. But there was something strange about it. The message wasn't just noise, it was organized, it was precise. And it was clear that whoever or whatever had sent it meant for it to be understood. Inside the main control room of Earth's space station, the hum of machinery filled the air. A group of scientists, huddled together around computer screens, stared at the data streaming in front of them. It had come without warning, a signal from the far reaches of space. Something no one had expected. Dr. Evelyn Smith, the lead scientist, was the first to notice something unusual. As the signal continued, she saw a series of numbers and symbols forming a pattern, one that couldn't be explained by any natural or man-made source. "What is this?" she whispered to herself, leaning closer to the screen. The others gathered around her, equally curious. The symbols were alien, yet somehow they felt familiar. It was as though they were trying to communicate with Earth, but in a way that no one on the team could explain. "This can't be real," said Dr. Thomas Reed, a specialist in extraterrestrial communication. "There's no way this could be a random occurrence. This is structured. This is a message." Evelyn's heart raced as she began to analyze the patterns. As she worked, the signal began to shift. It was almost as if it was adapting to the methods they used to decode it, like it was learning. She tapped a few keys on her console, and suddenly, the signal changed again. A new sequence of symbols appeared, but this time, there was something more: coordinates. A map leading to somewhere deep in space. "Look at this," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with excitement. "This is a map to a location in the galaxy. But why is it being sent to us?" The team fell silent as they absorbed the gravity of what they were seeing. A map, and not just any map, but one that could lead them to something unimaginable, something beyond anything they had ever known. The coordinates were pinpointed to a remote part of the galaxy, far from Earth, in a region that had never been explored before. It was a place where no human spacecraft had ever traveled. Evelyn quickly shared the coordinates with the rest of the team, and they began to run the numbers. They cross-checked the data using Earth's most advanced telescopes, but they couldn't find anything. It was as if the place didn't even exist. Yet the signal was real. The data was real. It wasn't a mistake. "This is impossible," said Dr. Mark Turner, an expert in deep space navigation. "We've searched this part of space countless times, and there's nothing here. No stars, no planets, nothing. But this signal, it's coming from somewhere."
Ow.
The team was left in stunned silence. Earth had never received anything like this before. A message from an unknown source, with no clear origin, leading to a place that didn't exist. What could it mean? Who was sending it, and why? As the minutes turned into hours, the signal continued to pulse. It wasn't just a single message, it was a continuous stream of data. It's almost as if it was inviting them to follow, to seek out the source of the signal. Every time they thought they had cracked the code, another layer would unfold, leading them deeper into the mystery. It was as though the signal had been waiting for someone to discover it, waiting for Earth to listen. "I don't think this is just a message," Evelyn said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "I think it's a warning. A message from someone who wants us to find them. But why now? Why Earth?" The others exchanged nervous glances. It was one thing to receive a strange signal from deep space, but it was another thing entirely to think that someone, or something, might have been waiting for them to find it. The implications were staggering. What if this was the first contact with an alien civilization? What if Earth wasn't the only intelligent species in the galaxy? What if the signal was a test, a way to see if humanity was ready for what lay beyond the stars? "We need to send a response," said Dr. Reed, his voice firm with determination. "We need to find out who's out there and what they want." But Evelyn hesitated. As much as she wanted to explore the possibilities, a small voice inside her told her that this could be dangerous. They had no idea who or what was sending the signal or what their intentions were. But one thing was clear: the galaxy had just changed forever. And Earth was about to be at the center of something far bigger than anyone could have ever imagined. As the signal continued to pulse, its message became clear. Earth had been invited to the stars. But what would they find when they got there? And what would they do when they learned the truth? Evelyn didn't know the answers. But she knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk, the unthinkable technology. The days following the discovery of the signal were filled with confusion, excitement, and a growing sense of unease. Earth's brightest minds had been brought together to analyze the data, and yet no one could explain the strange coordinates or the significance of the message. Every theory seemed to lead to more questions, but no answers. The urgency in Evelyn's voice as she spoke to her team had been the only constant. They had to act quickly. "I think we're missing something," Evelyn said one evening, staring at the giant holographic display in front of her. The coordinates were now burned into her mind. "There has to be something more to this than just a map. I can feel it."
Dr. Reed nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the data with careful precision.
"You're right. We've been so focused on the signal itself that we haven't stopped to consider what it might actually be leading us to. What if the message isn't just a location? What if it's pointing to something else? ... Something dangerous?" The room fell silent. No one had dared to consider that possibility yet. The idea that the signal could be a trap, a weapon, or worse, something designed to exploit Earth, felt too overwhelming to accept. But Evelyn couldn't shake the thought. Every instinct told her that the signal was more than just an invitation, it was a warning. Whatever lay at the coordinates wasn't meant for Earth to find. Despite their fears, the world was watching. Media outlets from across the globe began reporting on the mysterious signal, and the public's curiosity grew with every passing hour. People wanted answers, and they wanted them now. The pressure was building, and Earth's leaders knew they couldn't keep this secret for much longer. Then, something unexpected happened. Late one night, the signal changed again. It wasn't just the same repeating sequence of numbers and symbols. This time, it was different. It was faster, more complex. It was almost as if it had anticipated their every move. The team had made progress, sure, but the signal was outpacing them, pushing them to keep up with its pace. And then, as if to answer their question, the message shifted one more time. A new set of coordinates appeared on the screen. They were no longer just pointing to a remote region of space. They were pointing to something much closer. Right at the edge of Earth's solar system, but this time, there was something even more profound. Attached to the coordinates was a series of instructions, but they weren't in any language known to man. They were coded patterns, one after another, like instructions on how to build something. "It's not just a message," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with realization. "It's a blueprint. It's telling us how to build ... something." Dr. Reed's eyes widened. "Something? Like what?" Evelyn didn't have an answer, but she knew they couldn't ignore it. "We need to build it. Whatever this is, it's something important. It could be the key to understanding everything." The team worked tirelessly, using every resource at their disposal. For weeks they attempted to decode the instructions, piecing together the technology described in the blueprint. Each step was more mind-boggling than the last. The materials required were unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Some of the elements mentioned didn't even exist in Earth's periodic table. The instructions themselves seemed to defy known physics, referencing concepts that couldn't be explained by current science, but that didn't stop them. They couldn't afford to stop. As the days passed, Earth's governments began to allocate more resources to the project. Secret construction sites were set up in remote locations across the planet, and teams of engineers, scientists, and specialists were gathered to work on the project. The question of what was becoming less important. What mattered was the urgency. This wasn't a game. Earth couldn't afford to fall behind. When they finally began to assemble the first components, it was clear they weren't building a ship or a weapon. They were building something far more advanced, something that defied every law of known science. The object took shape slowly at first, a glowing structure that pulsed with energy, constantly shifting in form. No one knew what it was or how it was supposed to function. but they knew one thing for sure: it was alien. Beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Weeks turned into months, and the first test of the device approached. Evelyn stood before the massive machine, her heart pounding. The rest of the world had watched from afar, but now, with the countdown clock ticking down, Earth was about to take its first step into the unknown. "Are we ready?" Dr. Reed asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be." They activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. The machine hummed softly, its surface glowing with an ethereal light. And then, the ground beneath them trembled. The device powered up, emitting a bright pulse that sent ripples through the atmosphere. The air crackled with energy, and for the first time, humanity felt what it was like to stand on the brink of something extraordinary. And then, just as suddenly, the machine stopped. "What happened?" one of the engineers asked, confusion written across his face. But Evelyn's eyes were fixed on the machine. Something was wrong. The signal hadn't stopped. In fact, it had only gotten stronger. "We didn't build it right," she murmured. "This isn't just an invitation. It's a test." The light flickered again, and this time, it wasn't just the machine that was glowing. Somewhere in the depths of space, the answer was coming. And Earth was about to discover it. Asterisk a dangerous race the moment the device activated. Something changed in the air, something subtle, but undeniable. The world was watching, their eyes glued to the screen. As the mysterious alien technology began to hum with an unnatural energy, yet, instead of the triumphant celebration they expected, a cold unease settled over Evelyn and her team. The sudden, unexpected surge of power was unsettling. They had expected progress, not an interruption. Had they triggered something? Or had they unknowingly crossed a line? Evelyn stood frozen, staring at the machine, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The faint hum it emitted slowly morphed into a low, echoing resonance. Then, a new signal arrived, one that no one had expected. It was a simple message, one that crackled through the static. "Earth, you've made your first mistake." The words sent a chill down her spine. She wasn't sure what to make of it. Was this a warning from whoever or whatever had sent the original signal? Or was it an invitation for something much darker? "What does it mean?" Dr. Reed asked, his voice tight with anxiety. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of how to react. Evelyn could barely answer. I think we've opened a door, and now it's not just us. Someone's watching." The message was clear. It wasn't just a signal anymore. It was a challenge, a test of Earth's resolve. Whoever or whatever had sent the signal was not going to just sit by and watch. They were watching humanity's every move, waiting for them to make a mistake. And Earth had just made one. The next few days were filled with an eerie silence. The construction of the device continued, but there was no fanfare, no applause, no sense of victory. It was as if the entire planet was holding its breath, wondering what would happen next. And then, as if to confirm their worst fears, reports began to trickle in from across the world. The first sign was subtle. Unexplained malfunctions began occurring in various parts of Earth's space infrastructure. Satellites blinked out of existence, communication lines were severed, power grids across continents flickered and failed. It wasn't just happening on Earth. Space stations reported similar glitches. Entire fleets of ships, both military and civilian, were now experiencing strange, almost otherworldly disturbances. The very fabric of space seemed to be shifting, stretching, and bending around Earth's position. It was then that Evelyn received an emergency transmission from the ESU Space Council. The message was cryptic, but the tone was urgent, fearful even. "We need you to stop. This is no longer just a matter of discovery. What you've activated is something beyond your control. Earth is being watched, and if you continue, you'll bring down the wrath of the galaxies." Evelyn felt her pulse quicken. What had they gotten themselves into? The more they discovered, the more it seemed as if humanity had been playing into the hands of a much larger game. One where Earth wasn't just a participant, it was a pawn. And that was the most terrifying realization of all. But it wasn't just Earth that was at risk. The message from the council hinted at something far more troubling. The disturbance was spreading, and Earth was now at the center of a galaxy-wide race, one that no one had prepared for in the coming days. Earth's leaders were forced to make an impossible decision. They couldn't go back. There was no undoing the activation of the alien device. It had already been triggered, and its effects were far-reaching. The galaxy was now aware of Earth, and worse, the message had stirred something ancient, something powerful, that now had its sights set on Earth. But there was also an opportunity. The discovery of faster-than-light FTL technology had already changed everything. But now, Earth had a chance to become the galaxy's first truly independent power. It wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about survival. The FTL drive had the power to propel Earth's ships across the stars faster than anyone could have imagined. But it was clear now that they wouldn't be alone in this race. The galaxy's empires, having now learned of Earth's breakthrough, were making their own moves. Some of them had already set their sights on the alien technology humanity had unlocked. The race was on. And Earth's enemies were already closing in. Evelyn and the team quickly realized that the next step wasn't just building the technology. They had to learn how to control it, to use it in ways the galaxy's empires hadn't anticipated. But as they delved deeper into the alien technology, they uncovered something else, something that sent shockwaves through the team. The device wasn't just a tool for travel, it was a weapon, one capable of unimaginable power. Power that could tip the balance in favor of whoever controlled it. And now, Earth had to decide what it was willing to risk. Would they use the power to protect themselves, or would they try to negotiate their way out of the galaxy's looming wrath? The decision was made for them when Earth's military received an encrypted transmission from an unknown source, one that could have only come from the Galactic empires. The message was simple, but it was clear. Surrender or face annihilation. The clock was ticking. Evelyn knew that the next few days would determine the future of Earth. Humanity had just entered a race against time one, where every decision could mean the difference between survival and destruction. And if they didn't move fast enough, Earth might not just lose the race, it might never get a chance to compete. The stage was set, and the galaxy's empires were watching, waiting to see if Earth was ready for the next step. Earth's first leap, the first few moments after the message arrived, were a blur of chaos. The encrypted transmission had sent waves of panic across Earth's government, military, and scientific sectors. But no one could ignore the stark ultimatum they had received: surrender or face annihilation. The weight of the threat felt like a shadow that loomed over everything. Evelyn and her team knew that the fate of Earth now rested on their shoulders. The Galactic empires had already learned about the faster-than-light FTL technology. They weren't interested in negotiation, they wanted control. The implications were clear: if Earth didn't act fast, it would be crushed under the weight of galactic power. But Evelyn refused to back down. This was humanity's moment. If they gave in now, if they surrendered the technology, they would be doomed to remain a secondary player in the galactic arena forever. Earth had never been the most powerful, but it had something the galaxy didn't resolve. This isn't just about survival anymore, Evelyn said, pacing around the war room. It's about freedom. If we let them win, we'll never be more than pawns. We need to take a stand. The pressure to act was unbearable, but Evelyn knew they had no choice but to move forward. The FTL technology could be the key to Earth's survival, but only if they could harness it fully, unlock its true potential. They had no idea what they were truly dealing with. The device was still incomplete. The plans they had followed to build it were alien, and they'd only scratched the surface of its capabilities. But one thing was certain: it was more than just a means of travel. The technology they had uncovered was capable of warping reality itself, spending time and space in ways no one could have predicted. They had to test it, and so the decision was made. The team would conduct Earth's first official FTL leap. This wasn't just a test anymore, it was a statement. Humanity was not going to go down without a fight. The ship, a sleek, advanced vessel built from the FTL blueprint, stood ready. It had been outfitted with the alien technology, a combination of Earth's best engineering and the strange, incomprehensible designs they had found in the signal. The ship was their weapon, their message to the galaxy. Earth was not weak. They were ready to take on whatever came next. Evelyn stood in front of the ship, looking up at its gleaming surface. There was no turning back now. "We're about to make history," she whispered, almost to herself. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Dr. Reed was beside her, his expression as tense as hers. "Are we sure we're ready? We're jumping into the unknown. We don't even know if this thing is stable." Evelyn glanced back at him, her eyes steely. "We don't have a choice. The galaxy is watching, and they'll come for us the moment we show any weakness. We need to take the first step. We need to show them what we can do." With the press of a button, the engines roared to life. The hum of energy filled the air, and the crew felt the tension in the air as the power surged through the ship. It was happening. The leap was about to begin. Evelyn turned to the crew, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "This is it. Once we initiate the jump, there's no going back. But we've worked for this. We've earned it. Prepare yourselves." As the countdown reached 0, the FTL drive activated. The space around the ship began to distort, the stars outside the viewport stretching into streaks of light. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as she watched the familiar world of Earth begin to fade away. They were traveling faster than light, racing toward an unknown destination, and then, just as quickly as they had launched, the world around them seemed to freeze. The ship's controls flickered, and the crew braced for impact. Something was wrong. The first thing Evelyn noticed was the eerie stillness. The ship's systems were still operational, but there was no sound, no motion. The ship had crossed into a dimension of pure energy, where time and space warped in ways they couldn't comprehend. "Report," she shouted, her voice urgent. Dr. Reed's hands flew over the controls. We've crossed a boundary. We're not where we're supposed to be. This isn't just a leap through space. It's a leap through time. We've gone further than we intended." The crew stared at the screens, watching as the ship floated in a suspended, timeless void. The stars outside were no longer stars. They were shapes, fractal patterns that didn't make sense. And at the center of it all, a dark, swirling vortex began to form. The anomaly, the tear in space, was reacting to their presence. "This isn't good." Dr. Turner, the ship's chief engineer, said, his voice filled with dread. "If we stay here too long, we'll be trapped. This is a pocket of space-time that doesn't belong. We need to find a way out." But just as panic started to set in, the vortex pulsed, and with a sudden jolt, the ship lurched forward. They had broken free of the anomaly. The stars returned to their usual positions, and the ship found itself in an unfamiliar region of space, far beyond where they had expected to end up. Evelyn looked out the viewport, her heart pounding. "Where are we?" "Not sure," Dr. Reed replied, scanning the star maps. "But this is far beyond anything we've seen before. We're not just outside Earth's solar system. We're in an entirely new sector of the galaxy." The crew was silent as the enormity of what they had just accomplished sank in. They had crossed the boundaries of known space and arrived somewhere completely new. Somewhere, perhaps even more dangerous than they could imagine. Evelyn turned to face her team, the weight of their discovery pressing down on her. "We've done it. We've crossed into the unknown. And now, we have to survive in it." But little did they know, the galaxy was already aware of their presence. The races of the galaxy, the very empires that had once threatened Earth, were watching from the shadows. They had been waiting for this moment. The first step into the unknown had been taken. Now, the race to survive and to conquer had begun. Asterisk the battle for the stars, the silence aboard the ship was unnerving. The crew, though trained for the unexpected, had never been this far from home, this far from everything they had ever known. The ship's AI systems were trying to make sense of their location, but the data it returned was no help. The star maps had no reference to any known space stations or celestial bodies. They were truly alone, lost in the vast reaches of an uncharted sector. Evelyn stood in front of the viewport, staring out into the dark expanse of space. The ship's engines hummed softly, a comforting sound amidst the uncertainty. The stars around them were unfamiliar, strange, and far too distant. There was no sign of life, no signs of civilization, just the eerie emptiness of deep space. It felt like they had crossed into a realm where nothing existed but the ship and its crew. Suspended in a place where time and space didn't seem to obey the normal laws of physics. How much longer until we can navigate back? Evelyn asked, her voice calm but heavy with concern. Dr. Reed was examining the star maps, his brow furrowed. We're completely off the grid. The FTL drive brought us into a part of the galaxy that's never been explored before. I don't even know if our current coordinates are anywhere close to Earth. We could be light years from where we thought we were. We need to get back, Evelyn said, her voice tinged with urgency. We can't stay here. Just then, the ship's AI, Athena, beeped to life. A soft robotic voice echoed in the control room. Warning. Unidentified objects approaching at high speed. Incoming contact. The crew froze. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat as she turned to Dr. Reed. What do you mean? What kind of objects? I'm not sure, he said, tapping furiously at the console. I'm not getting a clear read on them. They're moving fast, faster than we can react. We're not alone. Before anyone could respond, the ship jolted violently. A deep, hollow boom reverberated through the hull as something collided with the ship. The lights flickered. The warning sirens blared to life. Outside the viewport, streaks of light flashed by as an enemy fleet appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the ship in an instant. This is impossible, Dr. Turner shouted, scrambling to his station. They're coming from all sides. I can't make sense of the readings. These ships are using technology we've never seen. Evelyn's mind raced. The sudden appearance of the fleet was too quick, too precise. They had been too far out of reach for anyone to know their exact location. There was no way any fleet should have been able to track them this fast. Then it hit her. They knew we were coming, realization dawning on her. The moment we activated the FTL device, they were watching. This was all planned, but who are they? Dr. Reed asked, his voice trembling. Evelyn glanced at the ship's sensors, and there it was. An ominous sign that sent a shiver down her spine. The ships were not just any galactic fleet. They were different sleek, dark vessels with angular designs, alien to anything the crew had encountered before. The ships didn't belong to any known empire in the galaxy. They weren't just out to capture or destroy, they were hunting. They're not from any empire we know, Evelyn murmured. These ships, there's something else. Enemy fleet closed in. The larger ships flanked the smaller, faster ones, which darted around with almost unthinkable agility. These were no ordinary battleships. They were weapons designed for stealth and speed, perfect for an ambush. The alien ships surrounded them, cutting off any escape route. They've blocked our FTL jump capabilities. Dr. Turner cried. We can't get out of here. Evelyn gripped the edge of the console. The enemy had anticipated everything. Earth's first jump into FTL space had brought them to a place far beyond anything they were prepared for, and now it seemed like the universe had turned against them. These invaders knew how to manipulate space, how to keep humanity trapped in this unknown sector. We have to fight, Ellen said, her voice hardening with resolve. We can't let them control us. We've got one shot at this. Get the weapon systems online, now. As the crew scrambled to activate the ship's defensive systems, the enemy ships closed in on them. It was a race against time one, where every second counted. Prepare for impact. Dr. Reed shouted as the first volley of alien fire hit the ship. The ship groaned, and the crew was thrown against their harnesses as the blast rocked their vessel. Sparks flew from the control panels and alarms blared, signaling damage. Evelyn's mind worked in overdrive. They had no idea who these ships were or what their goal was. Were they after the FTL technology? Were they just trying to stop Earth from ever gaining power? She didn't know, but one thing was certain. They were here for a reason. And Earth was in their sights. Activate shields. Evelyn shouted, Return fire, now. The ship's AI responded, but it was too late. The alien ships fired again, this time with devastating accuracy. One of the smaller craft was crippled, its systems flickering as it drifted, but the rest of the fleet pressed in. The battle had begun. Earth's survival now depended on their ability to fight back. "We're not alone in the galaxy," Evelyn whispered, as the ship's weapons systems powered up. "And they're not here for peace." The crew fought desperately, firing back with all their might. But Earth's weaponry was no match for the precision of the enemy's attacks. Each shot they fired only seemed to provoke a more vicious retaliation. And as the battle raged on, it became clear this was just the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and Earth had just become a key player in an intergalactic war for control of the stars. Asterisk.